Hey class, it's me again. I wanted to post another quick video on how to search for some terms in personality psychology. Um, there's one great tutorial located in your learning module. I want to point that out real quick. So let me get off this page and into the module. This introduction to library research in psychology is pretty good, and it's going to help you understand what peer-reviewed journal articles are, some ways that you can manipulate search terms to help you out a little bit. And I think it's just a great introductory resource. I hope to take it a little bit of a step further here and actually do a couple searches on the topics that we have. So first thing I want to talk about though is we've got 3 tracks and topics, and I've got a short list of search terms for each track and topic for you. It's important that when you do some search, you sort of come up with some good search terms that are going to help you out here. So our first track and topic is biological influences on personality, and so that's the track, and the topic is traits. And so what that track and topic is really about is just how do biological factors or genetics impact personality traits. So that's why I have the following search terms listed, because it's going to be about biological factors as a variable and personality traits as a variable. Typically you're going to see personality traits as the outcome variable and genetic or biological factors as the predictor variable. So that topic, in some ways it's narrow because you don't have a lot of different ways to talk about some of these factors, but I think you're going to find it's going to generate a lot of potential research articles for you to use. If we go to track 2, environmental influences, topic 1, childhood experiences, we're going to be looking at those childhood experiences as a variable and personality as an outcome variable. Having some trouble talking today as you all are learning. With childhood experiences, that's a fairly broad term. You might, break it down to another variable that's a little bit more narrow that we know as a childhood experience. Unfortunately, a lot of children experience child abuse. One of the common search terms used in this class is like, what is the effect of child abuse on personality? Another one is attachment style. What infant or young child attachment style might you have experienced growing up, and what does that affect on personality? But again, what we're seeing here is that the early childhood experiences is one main variable, and then how this impacts personality is another outcome variable. Okay, lastly, if we go to track 2, topic 2, that track and topic is about the environmental influence of culture and its effect on personality. A real broad way to search this might be culture of origin and personality. Again, we're looking at one main variable, culture, and the outcome variable, personality. You could maybe narrow that down a little bit more, for example, and look at maybe a more narrower culture like Asian American culture and the outcome variable, personality. Another way you could do this might be, and I'm sort of leading the witness here a little bit. It's sort of an interesting thing. Personality disorders are very common in Scandinavian culture. It's just something, it's sort of an anomaly because people in Scandinavia, a lot of people don't tend to move to Scandinavia, and they don't tend to move out of Scandinavia. So they tend to marry and reproduce within their own culture, and they have a higher incidence of personality disorders. So I just threw that one out there in case anyone wants to look at that. So you could look at particular subculture here and personality disorders. You could look at personality disorders with any of these really, if you want to. It's another aspect of personality. We don't get too much into personality disorders in the course, but if that's something of interest to students, I'm not going to fight it. Ultimately, I just want people to have, to be reading about stuff they're interested in, whatever that may be. But we do need to stay on the subject of personality. So it's very important that you have personality traits, personality disorders, or just general personality features as your outcome variable. That has to be one of the variables. And then the other variable should correspond to your track and topic. Okay, getting a little long-winded here, but let's close that out and let's get into the library. So I've already got the databases page pulled up. I went alphabetically, and much like the other tutorial, I'm going to go into the PsycInfo database. It's one that I used a lot when I was getting my doctoral degree and doing my dissertation. I can't really say I have fond memories of that, but I have found it to be a useful database to use for a lot of reasons. Okay, so let's just look at one of these. So if we're going to look at genetic factors and personality traits, one of my search terms, and we just hit search. Letting it do some thinking for us. I'm going to go ahead and limit this a little bit to full text because I want to read it today. I'm also going to limit it to scholarly and peer-reviewed journals because those are the type of articles we want here. We want to be looking at peer-reviewed journals in this course. I'm going to go ahead and scooch up the publication date a little bit. It's helpful to have things that are like, within the last 20 years or so. It's not to say that there hasn't been good research done before then, but, I'm trying to narrow it down here. I'm trying to get narrow. Okay. So let's look at some of these titles, and one of the things I want to do here is to help you find articles where genetic factors and personality traits are going to be the main variables. Okay. So the first one here is kind of an interesting one. It's talking about personality disorders and another part of the DSM-5. Personality trait domains reflect the same genetic and environmental risk factors. And this is something that you could potentially use. No article was going to be like a perfect match for you to get to your topic. This one's pretty broad, but he's probably going to talk about genetics and personality traits. So that's right up your alley. And so that's one you could use for the course. If we go to the second one, the roles of genetic factors, personality traits, cognitive abilities. So this is really the main variable here isn't personality. It looks like it's creativity. Even though it's looking at these things as moderating variables, I'd prefer something that's a little bit more focused on personality research versus research into creativity. Creativity is more of a intellectual or cognitive domain versus a personality domain. Here's one that's really specific. You're looking at the relationship of personality traits and quality of life in postmenopausal women with regard to genetic factors. That one's not quite what we're looking for in this course. I'm not going to say you can't use any of these because it is talking about some of these variables, but this is really more about how personality traits and genetic factors might affect someone later in life. So quality of life is a big variable here. Ideally, I'd have something that's really just focused on personality traits and genetic factors as a variable. So I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to see if I can find something that's really focused. Okay, here's a pretty good one. Again, we've got a few more variables than what we necessarily want. But okay, here's what we do have. We have structure of genetic influences and environmental influences on personality, personality traits, and personality disorder. So this one is a little bit more focused on, genetics as a predictor variable and personality, personality traits, and personality disorders as the outcome variable. So, those are some of the predictor variables and outcome variables I was talking about when I was giving you that search list. There's no real shortcut around just going through a bunch of articles. Unfortunately, we haven't mastered the technology yet to where it just spits out like the most relevant articles for you out of the I think in this list I have 369. So get used to the idea of maybe looking through 50 titles. Wait to see something that jumps out at you. You can even go to the second page here. Okay, here's one that's pretty specific. We're looking at behavioral genetic evidence of two personality factors. So again, if we narrow down the variable, one looks to be about genetic evidence and the other is a personality factor. So I think if you use some of the search terms on my list and you go through and you start to look at maybe 30 or 40 of these articles that come up, I know that sounds like a lot, but if you can find ones that are a closer fit, that's great. I recognize that this isn't easy to do if these terms are sort of brand new to you. I have the benefit of I've been doing this for almost 20 years now. So I kind of know I have a pretty good sense of what these studies are going to be just by reading the title. And I know that's a little bit harder for students. When it's all said and done, the articles that you pick for this 2-3 library assignment, they don't have to be perfect matches. Really what I want you to be doing though is getting in the library, getting used to it, learning how to use a database. It's so important for your career going forward, your academic career going forward, that you get familiar with this. So, I think as long as you're finding something that is close and you're able to, complete the assignment, you'll score pretty well on it. Going forward in the course, we'll talk a little bit about, to what extent do we want to use these articles to really plan our hypothetical study. Because you can do a pretty good hypothetical study without being a super great expert in personality. And I will definitely help you refine some of those hypothetical study ideas as we move through the course. But for now though, just get your focus in on trying to do a good search, trying to get a couple articles that are relevant, and if you can do that, you'll be in good shape. And I will sign off now. Take care.